Okay, good evening to all of you. Thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. This is our regular meeting scheduled for March 6th. And excuse me, I'm sorry, I was looking at a different page there altogether. That's a note from a previous time. Today is June 20 on my calendar, so...
They'll say March 6th on it, though.
I was
right.
reading it correctly. Put that in the wrong spot.
That was a test.
Yeah, thank you. So, as we usually do, I'm going to ask our town clerk if she will call the roll, please.
Mayor Marshburn,
I am present.
Mayor Pro Tem Vance,
Here.
Councilmember Matthews,
Here.
Councilmember Singleton,
Here.
Councilmember Dellinger,
Here.
and Councilmember Behringer.
Here.
Okay, thank you so much, and council, thank you for being here. As we usually do, we're going to start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm honored tonight, by the way, to recognize, well, first of all, I'll recognize the young man who's going to come and lead us in the pledge, and that is Kiefer Fromm, who is with Scout Troop, is it 320, I believe it is, and after you lead us, I'll introduce the other folks who are with you here. So if you don't mind, if you can stand and join us, we would appreciate it.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. 2. Thank you.
And I would like to take just a minute to recognize the folks who are with him, and I may not have gotten everybody's name correctly, but Mr. Robert Fromm is here. He is the district council person for the same, yes, okay, it's district commissioner, I'm sorry. And also we have, I think, some relatives from California, the two ladies sitting here. We met them a little earlier. It's good to have you here. And then also Mrs. Fromm, if you'll wave your hand, that's his mother. So we're glad to have all of you here this evening. Okay, we will now have our invocation, and let me say it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Ray Carr, who is a chaplain with our police department. I want to say to you, Mr. Carr, and to the other chaplains, I admire your work. They are volunteers, and they do good work for our department, and it's a pleasure to have you here, sir, and we're honored if you would lead us in our invocation.
Shall we pray? Our Father, we approach your throne this afternoon recognizing that without you we are nothing, and without you we can do nothing. And so we pray for our town council, that they will take their responsibilities seriously, that they will be men and women of conviction and principle, and that they will not be controlled by the opinions of others. We pray that you will fill them with wisdom, give them unity, give them clarity of thought. And God, we pray that all they do will bring honor and glory to you and for the benefit of the citizens of this town. We also pray for our police department, for Chief Larry Smith and for Deputy Mike, and for all who work under them. We pray that you will protect them in their going and in their coming. We pray you will give them wisdom to deal with challenging situations. And we pray at the end of the day you will take them safely back home. And we pray for the town of Garner. Lord, we pray that unity, love, and a good spirit will prevail among its citizens, and that in everything, God, you will be glorified, and that this will be a place where people feel safe, secure, and want to be a part of. So now we commit this meeting into your hand, and we pray your will be done in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Mr. Carr, before you have a seat, we usually like to give our persons who come and lead us in the invocation the chance. I understand you're the pastor of a church
Yes, sir.
headed here. Is it the Baptist Center Church
Yes, sir.
in Clayton?
Yes.
Anything you care to tell us about your ministry there or things going on?
Yes, well, the church is part of the Southern Baptist Convention. We are 152 years. I've been there 11 years now. And we thank God for what he's doing in the church, in the community, and the many lives that have been impacted as a result of our presence there.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank
My
you for coming in this evening, and thank you for volunteering as a chaplain.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. The next item on our agenda is something we call petitions and comments. And I will, without reading the intro, unless I know that there's someone here, did anyone come this evening with the idea that you wanted to address the council on by way of petitions and or comments? If there's anyone, if you just raise your hand, I'll recognize you. Okay, seeing and hearing none, we'll move right along to the adoption of the agenda. Council members, you have access to the agenda. What is your pleasure about adopting that?
So move. Second.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded. If you favor adoption of the agenda, would you please vote aye?
Aye.
Okay, if there's opposition, and there is none. No presentations. Are you aware of any, Madam Town Clerk?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. So the next item is the consent agenda. You will notice that there are 4 items on there. Council, are you prepared to approve the consent agenda? If so, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Singleton, seconded by Ms. Behringer. If you favor adoption of the consent agenda, would you vote aye?
Aye.
And if you're opposed, no, and there is no opposition. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move right into the new and old business section of our agenda. We have 2 items under this particular heading. And at this time, I'd like to recognize our planning department for the first one. That is Ms. Ashley Harris. Good to see you, Ms. Harris, and thank you for being here. So when you're ready, you go right ahead.
Good evening, members of council. This is Swift Creek Apartments, conditional zoning CZ MP 2204. This project came to you previously and then went to Planning Commission back in May. The general case information: the applicant is Swift Creek Apartments LLC. They are also the property owner. The location is along US 401, which is Fayetteville Road, and the tract size is approximately 40.85 acres. This is a Tier 2 request with a master plan and written conditions. So the site location, as I said, it is along US 401. It is just south of the Wake County Colonial Heights subdivision. South of the site is Wake County property of Swift Creek. There is some conservation easements owned by them and by the city of Raleigh across the road of Fayetteville. They also have a planned greenway for that area. To the north of that is George's Landing, and to the very south of this page is the Brookwood subdivision. The adjacent zoning: to the north, there is a commercial mixed-use piece of property there that is currently vacant. To the south is rural agricultural, and that is the Swift Creek that flows through there. To the east is CMX and vacant, and also Wake County, which is a residential district. And then there is rural agricultural, that conservation easement that I mentioned, and R4, which was George's Landing that came through several years ago for approval. So as I mentioned, it's approximately 40 acres. The MFB district would make up approximately 34 of those acres, and then the CMX would be approximately 6.9 acres. The master plan proposes in the MFB district a density of about 14.4 dwelling units per acre with a maximum unit of 492. And the CMX portion would be 124 units, which is approximately 17.9 dwelling units an acre, and a little bit over 20,000 square feet of retail and commercial space there. So this is the project master plan. There are a few edits that I'd like to point out since you last saw this at public hearing. So per conversations that came out of that, the applicant has provided an additional access point for emergency vehicles and emergency access along US 401 here. And then they have also committed to capturing the 100-year flood storm event here in the SCM. As you can see, they have a proposed restaurant building in the CMX district, a first floor commercial building with upper story residential. The zoning line designation goes through this street in the center here, which then stubs out to the parcel to the north. There is a stamped pavement, specialty stamped road that connects the amenity space in the CMX district to the amenity space in the multifamily district. You can also see a number of carriage units, carriage buildings throughout this area of the site, as well as some open space areas also adjacent to the apartment buildings. And then the tree preservation is adjacent to the stormwater to the south, with the provision for potential connections to a future greenway, as well as a new pump station, which will be installed with the project here. These are some conceptual building elevations. You can see the typical apartment style building, the first floor commercial style building, the carriage units, the clubhouse, and the proposed restaurant brewery space in the CMX portion of the site. So as I mentioned, this project went to Planning Commission at their May 8th meeting, and the discussion focused on that new emergency access for service vehicles, the required improvements to US 401. There were general comments and appreciation of the focus on amenities, open spaces, and decorative street treatments. There were questions about the stubs being provided and the temporary turnaround along that new Van Dora Springs extension that goes across the south of the site. There were questions about what that median design might be for that, and questions about the dwelling unit sizes and anticipated pricing of the apartments, questions about the streetscape and open space details, the provided electric vehicle charging spaces, and a discussion about possible provision for a transit easement. So out of that conversation and the public hearing, the applicant has proposed a few new conditions for both the multifamily and the CMX portions. So you can see condition number 16, stormwater control facilities shall be designed to the 100-year storm as measured in UDO section 11.1.4. The developer will commit to a minimum of 50 tree save area replacement trees within and or adjacent to vehicle use areas as measured in UDO section 11.3.4. And the developer shall dedicate a transit easement measuring 15 by 20 along the property's Van Dora Springs Road frontage. The location of the transit easement will be determined and agreed to by the town and developer during subdivision or site plan review, and this condition will be satisfied if it is dedicated on the CMX portion of the site. So this condition was written that only one transit easement would be required, and it would be in either the multifamily portion of the site or the CMX portion of the site. So for the CMX district, the subject to NC.DOT and Town of Garner approval, the developer will construct a right-in, right-out emergency vehicle driveway access to Fayetteville Road. This access will not be used for day-to-day vehicle travel by residents, guests, or patrons. And the final design of the emergency vehicle driveway, if approved, will be reviewed during site plan review. The developer will dedicate the transit easement, as I mentioned, in either this portion of the site or the MFB portion of the site, and the stormwater control facilities for this portion of the site will also be designed to retain the 100-year storm event. During the Planning Commission meeting, they were charged to make the determination on consistency. So for the 2018 Garner Forward Plan, they determined that this plan is consistent with the split designation here on site. So as you can see, the yellow is the mixed density neighborhood center, which includes a mix of residential densities with incidental commercial uses integrated within a community. The development of self-contained, self-supporting neighborhoods is encouraged and may include individual offices, retail storefronts, and other service-related uses, and would be limited in scale to serve customers within walking distance. The other designation on site is the Neighborhood Commerce Center, which is generally located at the intersection of collectors, highways, arterials, and emphasizes smaller commercial centers that are within close walking proximity, so quarter mile to half mile of residential uses. Typical mix of uses would include retail sales, service, convenience stores, restaurants, or other office uses that share a common parking lot. And so the Planning Commission determined that this is consistent with the Garner Forward Future Land Use Map. For the transportation plan, it shows a proposed arterial road along the southern project boundary. It's planned to become the Vandora Springs extension, and the first portion of the road would be constructed with this project. This segment of that extension would be a 2-lane median divided section with curb, gutter, and sidewalk on both sides. This project will also add additional pavement, turn lanes, and a side path with a potential signal along US 401. And with those improvements, this project may be considered consistent with a transportation plan. And the Parks and Recreation plan is also consistent. The site is not designated as a parkland search area. However, it is adjacent to the Wake County Swift Creek Greenway corridor. And with the provisions for some proposed connections to the future public greenway and the sidewalks being installed along the Vandora Springs extension, this proposal can be considered consistent with the PRCR master plan. This parcel also falls within the Swift Creek Land Management Plan, which is an interlocal agreement and state law protecting Swift Creek and its lakes as a watershed. And the goal is to protect water quality within the watershed and prohibit industrial wastewater discharges. So this project is designated as new suburban under that plan, and impervious surface limits are allowed to reach 30% for commercial development, which is how apartments are classified under that plan. And so with the proposed stormwater infrastructure, this plan is considered in conformity with the Swift Creek Land Management Plan. So the consistency statement that the Planning Commission adopted was that this request to rezone 40.85 acres from commercial mixed use CMX and residential 4 conditional to commercial mixed use CMX 261 conditional and multifamily B MFB 261 conditional is consistent with the Town of Garner's land use plans, including the future land use map designation of mixed density neighborhood center and neighborhood commerce center regarding both proposed density and land use. And on a vote of 7-1, the Planning Commission accepted the proposed consistency statement. They did have a couple of conditions which were worked out with the zoning conditions that were presented to you tonight. So tonight your charge is to determine reasonableness of request, and the motions begin on page 60 of your packet. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harris. I'll have council give them an opportunity if they have questions for you or comments. I'll start with Mr. Matthews on my left, if he has anything.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, and I was out riding around Saturday, going down Tryon Road, and I noticed on the renderings of the apartments, the little balconies coming out like that. They had it on that development right near the country club down there. Now, I thought it looked really neat, and I was glad to see those added to this and made it stand out much better. I think it'll make it a much nicer product. It's good to see that. And that's all I had, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Singleton.
I want to go back to the what we talked about last time, and that's the one entrance in with the divided median that will connect to the one day, if it ever gets built, Vandora Springs extension. And we got the emergency exit access, and that's good. But it looks like to me that if any subdivision with 600 plus units comes in and has a divided median 2-lane in, 2-lane out entrance, could get built without having to build a separate entrance. I mean, that's what it looks like. That's what's being said. So we're going against our own rules. Okay. That's a big concern. The other big concern is nothing any of us have anything to do with is the Vandora Springs extension, which, we approved back in the late 90s a shopping center at that intersection. Never got built. We're told the beavers dammed up all the streams. It was a wetlands. It'd be very expensive to build. And now we're talking about it as a road. But that's another issue I have, is that we're connecting to a road that may never get built. I mean, we've seen the cost of how much projects are going up. Again, this has nothing to do with what y'all have done. It's just, it's on the plan and y'all just inserted it in and said, here we go. I have the big concern about that we're apparently violating our, we're not, I won't say we're violating, but in my eyes have problems with divided median entrance. When somebody could have done this years ago, and we didn't know this, and connecting to Vandor Springs, which I don't think any of us will see in our lifetime. So that's my biggest concern, is the access in and out, and also connecting to a road that may never get built.
My understanding with the median divided is that because there's enough pavement width there and the median, that it still allows for two-way traffic to flow through. So that's why it's counted as 2 access points, and that it's been a TRC precedent. That's how it's been done in the past, but I don't know if that's accurate, right? Yeah. It's just past precedent.
Okay, I'll let someone else ask questions.
Okay. Ms. Barrier?
The only concern I have is, as Mr. Singleton said, is about that Vandor Springs Road extension ever being built. I understand the purpose behind the connector there. It's just, we'll see. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Dellinger?
Rick said to speak into the microphone, so I'll speak into the microphone. I have that concern as well, and I think that the past precedent for that 4-lane connector is that connector goes somewhere, and that you can get out in the other direction. The other entrance is helpful, but I still think, again, you're referencing precedent now, or we're creating another precedent that we're going to reference in the future and do the same thing again. So that's a problem, I think. I do have some questions about parking. I didn't see any references at all to parking in the report or at Planning Commission, and so I had a hard time figuring out. I see a lot of asphalt and kind of carriage homes sitting on these islands, so I was having a hard time figuring out how many parking units there are. Based on, I came up with between 1160 and 1210. Does that sound about right?
We don't typically calculate the parking with the rezoning. We do it with the site plan, but the applicant is here and they might be able to confirm that for you, because I know that they have been working on their site plan.
I mean, I was a little confused with the carriage houses that had 12, and it seemed excessive given the UDO, because my calculation had it closer to 8. But that gives me other concerns related to Swift Creek, which I'll talk about later, and impervious surface. Okay, so I don't have an answer for parking. The other question I had was on the traffic, the southbound traffic that has to exit north and come back. Are there any improvements that are being put in for Georgia's Landing that will help that, or are they not really taking that into that traffic flow into account?
I believe that they'll have, when you do the U-turn, that like extra pavement that allows for that movement southward there. I believe that will be built with Georgia's Landing, and then that there will be additional pavement up by that industrial use. I can pull it up on iMaps quick.
Are there any lights being put in for Georgia's Landing at either of its entrances?
That I'm aware of.
Okay.
Jeff, do you know off the top of your head? No, I don't believe so. So I think there'll be a little bit more pavement put in with this turn lane, and then that like bulb out on this side, I believe.
Others, but I'll.
Okay. Mr. Vance, questions, comments?
No questions.
Okay. I'll go back around. Mr. Matthews, you want to follow up on anything?
No, sir.
You okay? Mr. Singleton, anything?
Same concerns I mentioned.
Okay. Anything else? All right. And I assume, by the way, we'll hear from the applicant.
here to
in a
answer
few minutes. Yep,
questions,
okay.
yeah.
Mr. Dellinger.
I kind of a general comment to the applicant on the project, in notwithstanding some of these other issues that the project has, I think, that are more a function of its location than the development itself. I kind of wish you guys been here earlier. This is a great project. It's well thought out. It's scaled properly. I think it's handicapped, unfortunately, geographically. I also appreciate the upping the water retention in the the watershed. That's great too. So that's just a comment, but I'll have more questions later.
And Mr. Vance, anything to follow? No questions. Okay, council, you feel like you've had ample opportunity to ask Ms. Harris your questions? And if so, we'll recognize whoever from the applicant would like to speak or be available to the council. Okay? All right. Thank you, Ms. Harris. We may
There's
need
no
you
formal
back.
presentation from the applicant. They're just here for questions.
Sure, yeah, okay, right. So if you will, just say, give us your name and address.
Thank you, Mayor Marchburn and council members, Worth Mills, Longleaf Law Partners. On behalf of the applicant, I won't belabor the point and restate everything that Ms. Harris said, but we are consistent with all of the applicable comprehensive plan, maps and various plans that make up the land use plan as well as the future land use map. I do think that in order to get the Van Dora Springs extension built, we've got to be able to have a development in place to do that. And I understand that, this property has come before this council before under a different plan. And, the best thing I think that we can do is to continue to create a environment in which development can occur here and Van Dora Springs extension can be built, which will hopefully, kind of be a domino in the overall extension of that street and lessen the traffic impacts along 401. I will turn it over to Marty Bizzle to answer the question about parking, but appreciate your time and consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay. Mr. Bizzle?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. It's a pleasure to be before you again this evening. To reiterate a little bit about what Ashley did discuss, we did take the access points very seriously and took that back to DOT and showed them our desire to provide an emergency access, and we received positive feedback from NCDOT, so they are very much in our court as far as that goes, and we felt comfortable enough to add it to our master plan. So that is before you tonight. Just wanted to throw that in. On the parking, on our master plan that should be in your packets under our site data, we did a little breakdown by zoning district. You can see as far as our parking counts go, 849 were required in the CMX or in the multifamily section, and 978 were provided in the CMX zoning area, which is up at the 401 intersection with Van Dora Springs. 318 were required and 318 provided. That 318 provided included barring 36 spaces from the multifamily. So we're very close to meeting what was required by the UDO. So, and I would just expand a little bit, Mr. Dellinger, on the stormwater or SCM. Since we last were here for the public hearing, we did go back and analyze very seriously the SCM, and very pleased to say that we can accommodate a full 100-year storm as far as peak attenuation. So when we stood before you before, we were not sure, but we have run the numbers and done quite a bit of analyzation on that, and we're able to do that. So happy to do that.
Okay, before we hear from the others, let me see if we have any questions for you, and I'll start with Mr. Dellinger this time.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, Mr. Vance?
Yes, I have a question in reference to the emergency act. A positive response from DOT. What does that mean?
Yes, absolutely. We'll let the traffic engineer, who actually had the conversations with DOT can speak to that.
Good evening.
For the record, if you will, Mr. Bizzle, I don't think you did, but let the town clerk know what your address is on your way out, I guess.
Marty Bizzle with project engineer with Bassett, Nixon, and Kennedy Engineers, 6310 Chapel Hill Road in Raleigh, 27607.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name's John Brennan. I'm the traffic engineer. I worked on the TIA for this project. We have had conversations with the district office. We don't have a driveway permit yet, but we do have approval for the additional emergency access, a verbal approval and an email approval. No driveway permit is issued until we get further along with the project. I've got a lot of experience working with the district office. I actually used to work at the Wake County District Office. I spent 8.5 years working there. So this satisfies all the district office's concerns.
Thank you, Sean.
You're good. Ms. Barrett, I'll come to you. Okay, Mr. Singleton.
Nothing right this minute.
Mr. Matthews.
I think it's time, sir.
Okay. Mr. Dellinger, anything where you want?
Nothing for the applicant, but I do have some more comments when
Okay.
they're done.
Anybody, I'm not sure who the other gentleman is, but we'll bring him forward and see if he.
Sorry, yeah, Kenyon Burnham with KDM Development, 8480 Honeycutt Road, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27615. Just here as a member of the development team to speak to any high-level items that you'd like me to comment on from the perspective of management or whatever. So
Okay.
happy to be here. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Let me see if there's anybody. I'll just ask generally, does anybody have questions for this gentleman? Okay, thank you. All right, anything else that the applicant cares to share at this time? Then I'm going to let council have some discussion on the matter. Okay, all right, good.
Mr. Mayor, as a reminder, this project will also come back to you again with a special use permit, just so you are.
Okay, yes, absolutely. And this is not a public hearing, so we're not necessarily having other persons to speak at this time, unless there's someone here who desperately wants to speak on this matter. And I don't see anybody, I don't believe so. Okay, what say you, council, as it relates to this matter that's before you? And I'll start with Ms. Behringer.
I don't have any more questions.
Okay. We'll soon be needing to consider a motion, but you're not ready to, okay. I'll go to Mr. Singleton next. Any comments, observations you want to make sure?
I still got an issue with the one entrance. And I'm sitting here reading, I know it says the width would allow two-way traffic on either side of the median has been found acceptable as a temporary modification of the access coordination standards by emergency services providers of the TRC, keeping in spirit of section 8.3.4.b, even though the section speaks specifically to the number of subdivision lots. The possibility of another exit onto 401 is being discussed, which is an emergency exit. We know we've gotten that far along, which is good. It just looks like to me this is a one-way in and one-way out, because I don't think we'll ever see Vandor Springs extension get built. Yeah, it may be, but I don't think we'll all see it. So I still have that concern about the one-way in and one-way out. I mean, all the issues we had with driveways and entrances and connectivity here in the last year or two, and while this seems simple, to me it's still a concern.
Okay.
Section that we called out, that is the section that staff has relied on in the past for that. We do have the public street stub out here. So, and these properties here are undeveloped. We've been approached by some folks, not in the too distant past, that are looking at this as well for development. So the plan would be to then connect that out through there and back out to 401.
But it's still got to be a project that's got to be approved.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's,
Yeah, it doesn't solve it today.
no. All right.
Anything, Mr. Matthews? Okay, I'll start with Mr. Vance on this end.
My question has been answered.
Okay, all right. And Ms. Behringer, I believe you said you didn't have anything?
No.
Okay, Challenger, comments?
I still have concerns with the one in, one out. Again, the precedent seems to carry a lot of weight on future decisions, and I still have kind of longstanding concerns with this Swift Creek land management plan, and I've said it in other projects in this quarter that I don't think that this project and some of the others conform to this, one, the spirit of the land use plan, but also to the statute and also to policies and the interlocal agreements. There's this overly broad interpretation of non-residential meaning commercial. I read through Swift Creek plan, our version of it, the interlocal agreement, the two amendments. It doesn't address it that way. And the problem with that is that it puts us in the position of this, the land use plan is based on density, residential density. And so it's encouraging us to interpret it this way. It results in overproduction of residential units, which we already have determined is detrimental to the town fiscally. It's also detrimental potentially environmentally, locally. The one entrance is a big issue, but this other issue with the Swift Creek is a big problem because it encourages us to convert commercial real estate zoned property into residential. And this is predominantly residential, which again brings with it a lot of other issues. So those are my two biggest issues with this project as it stands right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Excuse me, Mr. Dellinger. Any other comments council cares to make? We have a potential motion before us, or we'll see. But you've heard, let's see, I believe I heard that the Planning Commission found the consistency in the other issue on a 7-0 vote, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else from other council members at this point? Anything else from the town?
I understand the concerns about Swift Creek. All I can tell the council is that the staff in charge of the interagency agreement, that is the interpretation. And I would just offer as well then that if that wasn't the interpretation, you would not be able then to have mixed use vertical anywhere in the Swift Creek without having to watch for those residential densities as well. So, like I say, I think I've mentioned that in the past, that it's primarily about the impervious surface, and when you know the site plan, you've got those impervious surface calculations. In residential development subdivisions, you don't know that until the building permit, which is much later in the process. So they have to do it some way. So by residential dwelling unit is the proxy. So again, that's the interpretation of the interlocal folks that manage it.
Just a comment. It'd be nice to see that written, because it's not written. And I think part of the concern and the issue is that the Swift Creek land use management plan was drafted prior to this sort of notion of mixed use. And so that's why it only mentions residential and non-residential. The solution to that would be for the town or staff from our town to present another amendment addressing mixed use so that it could be done and achieve kind of what we're trying to achieve. Again, my issue is that it's really going against the spirit, because the spirit is about units. The maximum density here, I think, is 6 dwelling units per acre on the residential side. Right, so it's way in excess of that. And the reason is because people are part of the concern in the watershed, not just the impervious surface. You have more traffic, you have more opportunities for pollution when you have more people. So But I appreciate your explanation. But I think there's something we could do on the policy side proactively to make it conform all to our UDO, because we don't even consider in our UDO non-commercial and mixed use are two different things, and we handle them differently. So it would be nice to be able to promote a project like this within the existing policy framework of the land use plan. So,
And I'm happy to bring that up, just to state that as of right now, that's, I'm happy to bring that up to the rest of the group and see what they have to say. As of right now, their response has been that no amendment is needed to accomplish these things, but I get what you're saying about wanting to guard against some other things. So I'll be happy to bring that up.
Thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. Okay. Any other council members care to comment before I ask for a motion on this matter? Okay, hearing none. Council, you have this matter before you. You've heard the comments of your fellow council members and heard from the applicant, heard from our planning department. It's now time to make a decision on this matter, I believe. So you have the motion there before you. I'll entertain a motion if you're so inclined.
Move that the town council accept the planning commission's written statement regarding consistency of the zoning amendment request with adopted land use plans detailed in section 6 of the staff report as our own, and I further move that the town council adopt ordinance number 2023-5208 approving rezoning CZ MP 2204 as requested is reasonable and public interest because it will likely promote multi-family housing in select areas, be an overall design that keeps within the town's character and improves property values.
Second.
Before we vote, any last minute observations anybody cares to make? Okay, hearing none. If you favor the motion that is before you, would you vote aye at this time?
Aye.
If you're opposed to the motion, would you vote no? Okay. The chair would, I don't believe I need to call the roll, but I heard a 3 vote aye and 2 council members who voted no. By my calculation, the motion passes on a 3-2 vote. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be anticipating the, I guess, the special use permit coming back before us. Do you know when? Or okay. All right. Thank you much. Okay. All right. The next item under new and old business is the FY 23-24 budget adoption. Much anticipated, and we will recognize our budget manager, Ms. Sarah Warren.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the, on the agenda, we have the recommendation to adopt the budget. As a recap, Council has proposed an additional 1.99 cents above the manager's recommended budget. 0.5 cents is for a 2-year mid-year pay adjustment and for our flock upgrade that supports Garner Police. We have a penny for parks and facility repair and maintenance. And then we have 0.49 cents for public safety technology, which will go to support our body camera and in-car camera system upgrades. So what this looks like is for the FY24 year, a tax rate of 0.627 per $100 valuation and a total budget of $60.9 million.
Okay, I think that's a concise description of where we are at this point in time. So I'll start with Ms. Behringer. And do you have questions, observations, or questions for Ms. Warren?
Just have one comment to make. I recently was speaking to my 42-year-old son. He lives in Virginia, has 2 small children. And I did not give him any history about this, just asked him what his opinion was about taxes, property taxes. And he hesitated for a moment, but not for long. He said, well, I like what I get for it. So that gave me some things to think about. And, you know, we don't like to ever have to raise taxes, but it's a fact of life. We have to pay for what we get. And most of the time, we're glad we get those things. So just wanted to share that. That was from somebody completely unrelated and didn't know what was going on here. But his comment was, I like what I get for it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go back and forth, so I'll go to Mr. Singleton next.
The clarification on the technology for public safety is the constant need to upgrade the software and also actually the cameras itself and also the in-dash cameras, which I know with our officers' number of vehicles now, we're probably in, how many in-car cameras we got? 65, 70, 75, and also body cameras. I know you have for all the officers plus extras. And so that's the first body cameras we got a few years back. We did get a grant, part of the federal grant, but now it's not. Now it's time to start replacing some of those.
Yep, so that the amount that's built in for the camera is a flat 5-year subscription-based service. With the way that the 0.49 cents works is that as the value of the penny goes up, the allocation will go up as well. We've also built in a percentage increase in 5 years once the current agreement is up, with the anticipation of that going back up again.
Anything else?
That's all for now. Thank you.
Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been quite a budget year, and I appreciate the staff and what all's been done. I know we had great debate here a few weeks back trying to come up with a figure, and I think when it was all said and done, we've addressed so many of the issues and concerns. And being probably one of the more senior ones on this board, I've seen a lot come and go, and it was my privilege to be chairman of the Wake County Commissioners a few years back when we had our first $1 billion budget. And you think we had fun with this one. We had a grand time with that one, looking at the county. But realizing the fact you're not going to 100% take care of everything in 1 year. I think with the suggestions being made and the new amount we're looking at, we have addressed quite a few of these, and we've got it going in the right direction. Is there more we can do? Probably this year we've done about all we can do, but the next year we'll pick it up and run with it from there and see where we're at, because there's still some unknowns coming in, property evals and some other things. So, but I think realistically, to cut to the chase, we've heard everybody, we've worked together on this thing, had good meetings, and I think we've got a workable solution here. And speaking for me, I can support it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matthews. I'll go to my right to Mr. Vance.
First of all, I will say a tremendous amount of work has been done. Initially, when it first started into the budget process, I stated this would be a challenging budget, and it was. And a lot of work has been done by the staff. And staff, thank you so much for your hard work and everything you've done, and meeting with us consistently to ensure that our concerns were answered as best that you possibly could, and pulling everything together. And no one really, I don't know anyone who says I would love to have a tax increase. That's just not the norm, but with the way that Garner is moving and growing, it's an imperative that we do what is necessary to provide the services that the citizens will demand. And this is a part of that process of providing those services. Again, thank you for the work that's been done, and a tough decision will be made in the positive direction on my side.
Okay, thanks, sir. Mr. Dellinger.
Yes. I echo everything my fellow council members have said, and also want to thank staff for all their hard work. and conversation in getting to where we are. I would ask for the benefit of the public for the parks and facilities and the police technology. You've changed some of your budgetary tracking than we've done previously in terms of carryover. And if you could explain that and how it kind of helps with tracking some of these funds.
So technology, our technology fund, our perform fund, and our vert fund. So technology, facilities, and vehicles are all moving from a line item in the operating budget to the capital fund. So they will now all three be different programs within the capital budget. And you'll see that on the ordinance. There's allocations, general fund allocations to those. And what this means is they're now in a multi-year fund. So projects roll from year to year, and they don't close out. So it helps, especially when we think about, clearly with construction, when things are spanning multiple years, or just timing of when you need to, go to bid on something, it makes much more sense. With our vehicles, with the market that we're in, this allows us to roll funds when we can't buy a vehicle because it's unavailable, but we've made the funding available. We can continue to seamlessly roll that from year to year so that Public Works continues to have access to those funds. So when the vehicle does become available, the money is there for that replacement. But then what it also does is if there's leftover money from year to year because of project savings and whatnot, it just will add to subsequent year funding for additional projects.
Thank you. I know there's some concerns amongst council on the revenue savings plan, and I know we're using some of that to gap fill this year on the capital side. I'd only make one recommendation on the multi-year projections. I know that in the multi-year projections, that 410 continues to be there, and I think that sort of sends a signal to the next budget and then next council that that's sort of approved, but that's not really a decision. It's a decision to be made by, I think, the next council when it addresses the revenue savings plan. So I'd make the request, and my other council members can chime in if they feel similarly or differently. But that 410 in future budgets not be modeled as already being taken out and allocated. I think it's a default position that I think carries a little too much weight. So.
Okay, and Mr. Singleton.
So I get to go twice, good. Thanks. I just wanted to point out, what Mr. Dillinger said about the revenue savings is correct. We realize we need to go in there and look at the policy and do further discussion whether the 410 is included in the future or not. But I think something we've learned here is that we're using that to help pay for many capital projects. When we have those projects in place, those projects are completed, those capital projects, and they still need maintenance and upgrade. And I think that's some of what we're looking at with the perform. One penny dedicated to it. I will mention this, I mentioned it to staff when I met with them a couple of weeks ago, is I still want to make sure that even though a lot of these capital projects are big line items, I sure hope we consider the impact that small projects have. We talked about it then, and I hope a percentage of this money goes to small projects, doing work at our parks, our trails, and our facilities, town building, police station, GPAC, maintenance work there that costs just a few $1,000s sure goes a long way in the appearance of what the public sees. Nice, clean facilities, upgrades here, upgrades there. I know we're getting a substantial grant to upgrade the senior center, and that's just for the senior center, which it needs the work. And so I hope that we'll continue to. I hope that we will focus also on the small projects and not just the large projects, which definitely have to be funded. Based off what we're showing here, $7.3 million over 5 years, and of course the CIP is tens of millions of dollars. So this is just trying to keep up. But I appreciate the work. I'm not big on tax increases either. I thought the first half cent we did for the 2% mid-year upgrade to staff was important. I've had several staff thank us for considering that in the budget. I mean, I own a home in Garner, an office building in Garner, and I own a property in Raleigh. So I paid Wake County taxes and Garner taxes and Raleigh taxes and a lot of vehicles. So I pay a lot of money in taxes. I mean, over $10,000 in taxes. So I know what it's like when you can have an upgrade. So a tax increase, not an upgrade, excuse me. Some people may not consider that an upgrade. Anyway, thanks again for the work, and we'll see how the vote goes.
Okay, yeah, gave Mr. Singleton a second opportunity. Anybody else care for another chance to comment, make observations?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to reinforce what has been said about the revenue savings plans, I agree with what's been mentioned in reference to going back and reviewing the policy on that and how we're currently using it in the future.
Okay. And I might just say, as Mayor, it was my understanding, after some of the deliberations that occurred, that this would not automatically be something that would project on out, but that, as you said, Mr. Dellinger, future council will probably just look at that whole issue with the revenue savings plan and see how, if any, that needs to be changed or tweaked or whatever term you want to call it.
Just for clarity, that it be taken out of the model, the 5-year model, so that it's clear that that's sort of the direction that we're going. Thank you.
Anything else? Here, okay. This is not a public hearing. We've had several public hearings on the budget. Don't know if there's any one here. And I don't believe I saw any more comments come in through the portal. Am I right on that? Anybody else see any new ones? Okay. Well, and I would say just before you vote that, and to all who are present here, that as mayor, I appreciate what I believe was certainly an attempt to have a team effort on this from staff and from council. A lot of back and forth, a lot of meetings. I was involved in some of those, and some I was not. But I think this budget has been much considered, discussed, and I think the final item, the budget, will stand the town in good stead, at least for this cycle, for the coming cycle. And to you, Ms. Warren, and your cohort there, we appreciate the work you've done. Okay. All right, council. At this time, I believe. Let's see, Ms. Jones. Do we take two votes on this potentially? In the sense that we have a recusal on a portion of the budget, right?
Yes, as the suggested motion, proposed motion sheet you have before you, you would vote on the budget ordinance excluding certain appropriations, which involve nonprofits that Councilman Vance has an affiliation with as a board or governing member. He would recuse, and then you would vote to specifically authorize the budget with those.
Okay. But the first vote would be with Mr. Vance not voting.
The first motion would exclude those two appropriations, and he would vote on that. Then he would recuse, and then you would vote to approve those two special appropriations.
Okay. All right, council, it's time it's decision time, so I would like to entertain a motion at this time for approval of this budget.
Mr. Mayor, I move the adoption of budget orders 2023, make sure I got this number right, 5209. Including all anticipated expenditures except for a portion of special appropriations allocated to Community of Hope Ministries and the MLK Celebration Committee.
Okay, motion is properly before council on a motion from Mr. Vance. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Singleton has seconded the motion. Unless council desires any further comment or observation, I'm going to call for the vote. You ready to vote, council? Okay, if you are in favor of the motion to approve this budget 23-24. I would ask you to vote aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, vote no. Thank you very much. I heard a unanimous approval at that time. Now we, let's see, we vote the second time.
Well, first, Councilman Vance will recuse himself.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I recuse myself.
Okay, so
Mayor, with Mr. Vance being excused for this vote, I move adoption of Budget Ordinance 2023-5209, including the anticipated expenditures to Community of Hope Ministries, a local nonprofit organization that Councilman Vance is affiliated with as a board member, and the MLK Celebration Committee, for which Councilman Vance is affiliated as a member.
Second.
okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, if you favor this motion with the notation that Mr. Singleton just shared with you, I ask you to vote aye.
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 If there's opposition, no. And there is none.
And you actually have two more votes.
Okay,
You're going to vote to approve the capital project ordinance, which is 2023 5210, and then also the fiscal year 23-24 fee schedule, which, if there's no confusion among you, you could do that in one motion.
that's what I say, yeah, okay. So council, you understand, we'll be voting on those two items in one motion,
Yes.
okay?
Mayor, I move we adopt ordinance 2023-5210, the capital project ordinance, and also the 2023-2024 fee schedule as listed in the agenda.
Second.
Second.
All right, if you favor this motion, would you vote aye?
Aye.
If you are opposed, no. Okay, and there is none. Well, any closing comments you want to make, Ms. Warren, or you?
Smile.
Thank you very much.
Okay, okay. And I also thank you and thank council. I know it's been a tough budget to deal with, and as for reasons stated. But I'm confident that this will carry us into the future in a way that we needed to do. We still have some challenging years ahead, but for this year, I think the council did what needed to be done, and so I commend you for doing that. Okay? Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say thank you to the council and all of the dialogue and the willingness to look at various scenarios. And, you know, as we talked about different things, you know, staff definitely doesn't take any tax increases lightly. But we appreciate your recognition of the needs of the town. First, you know, starting off with the employees and the salaries and just trying to be competitive with all of Wake County and our region. And we also appreciate the need to look at all the different needs within the departments as far as technology and equipment. And just a recognition that as we build new buildings and try to do our bond program, that we also need to take care of our existing facilities and do projects there that keep us, you know, a quality of life and keep us an attractive community. So we appreciate that. I want to say thanks to all of the budget team. Sarah, you know, her first few months here, I'm sure she had a lot of fun with the budget this year that she probably hadn't had before. And Ian coming on as a new student and getting his first opportunity here in the public sector. Jody and her leadership with the budget team and a lot of the new ideas that she brought here from her previous jobs, even starting when we were talking about ARP and all the different things that we were going to do with that. And John and Maury, and I don't think I'm leaving, David Beck and all his hard work from the finance side also, and just a full team effort, and all the department heads and the sacrifices that they know they had to make to get this budget through. And we'll continue to look at all the different needs in the departments and as we go forward, and just a great team here that really care about the town, and we appreciate, you know, you showing them how much you care about them through this budget. So we appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. I appreciate those comments. And I'll give council, if anybody cares to make a general comment, now that the budget's been approved, I'll be happy to hear from anybody. Won't call on names, but if anybody cares to. Down here, anybody? Okay. All right, here.
And Terry for all her guidance too, when we needed it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not an afterthought, that's, yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. Thank you, Ms. Jones. All right, and I want to single out our town clerk, who was somewhere in the middle of all this mix and some of the deadlines we were trying to reach and other things. So she was very patient through that in spite of the fact that we are absent a assistant town clerk at the present time. So thank you, Ms. Gibson, as well. All right, council, if you're ready to move along, we will take up the next item, which would be committee reports. Are there any?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say from the HR committee that we will continue with interviewing for the vacant positions, and we'll be coming back to you in the near future with recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Appreciate that. Okay. Ready for manager reports. So, Mr. Dixon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Town Council. We'll start off with the talk of the town, and Ms. Miller will cover that highlights from that report.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mayor, members of council, good evening. Just a quick recap of the June Talk of the Town report for council. I'm just going to go over a few highlights and then the analytics from the Garner Info app. I'm happy to report that the Creech Road Tennis Courts project, which we started about a year ago, has been completed. We're still working on the parking lot and getting that repaved over there and some walkway area to the courts, but the courts have been completed. They're open for play. If you haven't gone by to see them, I encourage you to do so. They look great. And so we're really excited.
Before you leave that, do I understand that there is room to play pickleball there?
Yes, they are striped for tennis and pickleball as well. So we're excited to have the courts back open, and they're in great shape. So I'm excited to share that with you. In addition to that, the repairs at Jackie John's Community Park, if you remember, in the fall with some of the storms we had some areas that need to be repaired, specifically with the restrooms. We had a tree come down. That work has been completed, and so the restrooms are back open. And in addition to that, we're going to be replacing the picnic tables that are there as well with sort of some of the end-of-the-year dollars that Parks and Rec had available. So we anticipate having those new picnic tables available sometime in July. So we're excited about that. There's been lots of work by inspections and public work. With all this rain and lovely weather we have comes lots of opportunities for grass and weeds and other things, and so they've been hard at work. One of the things that came up from our last meeting was an opportunity to remind residents about what the rules and regulations regarding tall grass and weeds has been with the town, and so I just wanted to let the council know that inspections is working with our communications team to come up with some additional information and strategies to make sure residents are clear about what the guidelines and regulations are. And so we'll be working on that and getting it out in different using different strategies to get that information out. We do currently have that information out available in some educational pieces here at Town Hall, at the library, and inspectors have it in the field that they can provide to people as well. So I wanted to let you know that we're working on that as an opportunity, and more to come on that. If you turn to the second page of your report, the Talk of the Town, we have our monthly analytics from the Garner Info app. We had 45 requests come in over the last 30 days or so. As you can imagine, some of the top complaints came in with tall weeds and grass, as we just talked about. We also had some requests submitted regarding garbage that needed to be picked up or trash. Of the items that were submitted, 76% have either been completed or in progress. And our public works and inspections departments have been very busy at work. About 85% of all the requests that are coming in through the app are being handled by our public work and inspections department. So I just wanted to briefly provide the council with that update, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Miller, for your report. Council, do you have any questions for our Assistant Town Manager on her report? Anybody? Okay.
I do have
Go
one
ahead, go ahead.
comment. With reference to making sure that residents know what is and is not their responsibility, I understand, I think from Mr. Jones, that in the past, or years past, that the towns were responsible for mowing the right-of-way from the back of the sidewalk, or the sidewalk to the back of the curb, but that changed a few years ago. And I think there's probably still an expectation by a lot of residents that the town will mow that. And so that is in line with what you just talked about as far as letting them know.
Letting them know. And that's the working with our public works and inspections that we're going to do, because you're correct. That was once a past practice, but a few years ago it changed, and we just need to make sure that everyone's clear about that change.
A lot of people aren't.
Yes.
So, okay. And that's all. So.
Okay. Mr. Manager, I'll go back to you, I believe.
All right, Mr. Mayor, just a couple of announcements. Big event coming up on July the 3rd, Independence Day celebration. From 5 to 10 p.m. at Lake Benson Park, and we're going to have C.J. Baker Band. We'll have the North Carolina Symphony, Kids Zone, food vendors, and, of course, fireworks at the end there. Another event, Downtown Sounds. It's a free concert series on the GPAC back lawn. The first concert is the Phoebe's Band. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, hopefully. On Thursday, July the 13th at 6:30. And then we also have a summer food truck rodeo that will be held in downtown Garner on Main Street on Friday, July the 21st from 5 to 9. Then something I would like to mention also for public awareness is Campo is conducting its Southeast area study. In the Garner portion of that, there will be an open period for public comment. So there will be a symposium here at Town Hall in the training room on Thursday, June the 22nd, to talk about that plan and how it relates to Garner.
What time will that be, Mr. Dixon?
That is, I have to find that time.
5 to 7?
5 to 7, yeah.
Okay,
I
thank you.
didn't write that down, but it's in the email here.
Yeah, can you send that out?
Okay, yeah, I can send it up. I can send it up. Yep.
Be here.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for the manager for the remainder of his report by anybody?
Yeah, 5 to 7. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Hearing none, we will go to see if our attorney has any reports to share.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for approving the paralegal position as a new position. Will be a great help to me and the legal department. So I look forward to that in the coming fiscal year. Councilman Matthews had asked for an update on the two bills that I had been giving you updates on. So Senate Bill 675, which has to do with the ETJ expansion, that passed the Senate, but it is sitting in the House. It has not been scheduled for a hearing yet in the House. So any House members that you're familiar with, please reach out to them and say that we would like to have the ability to expand our ETJ in the future. And I've sent proposed amendment language to the town's lobbyist, Sam Bridgers, to also speak to legislators about that. The other bill, which you might recall, it's been stalled for quite some time, was about the accessory dwelling units. That was House Bill 409. That passed the House, but it has had no action in the Senate since the end of April. So I'll keep an eye on those and let you know if there are any new developments. But again, that would be then reaching out to any Senate members that you might know about the accessory dwelling units.
Okay, any questions for our attorney? Thank you for tracking those things and making us aware. And I know I did talk to Mr. Bridges, and I think you and he had already talked at the time. So, and have been in touch with at least one House member, I believe. Thank you. All right, council reports are next. And again, I'll kind of go back and forth. So I'll start with Ms. Behringer on this one.
Yes, there are several properties along West Garner Road where the shrubbery is hanging over the sidewalk and smacking people in the face when they walk. One of them in particular is 108 West Garner Road. Just needs to be trimmed back. It's an ongoing thing. And just an observation, my husband and I are out walking this morning around 7 o'clock and came to the intersection of Creech Road and Garner Road. We had the right-of-way, and the car to our left was waiting for us to turn to go across before he turned. And the driver behind him started blowing his horn and just behaving very badly. And it's kind of sad that that somebody tries to do something nice and then somebody else gives them a hard time about it, particularly when pedestrians have the right-of-way there, and he didn't want to wait. So just sorry I had to observe that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pagger. I'll go to Mr. Singleton next.
Thank you. I appreciate the staff, the Talk of the Town reports, since I'm a frequent person. He uses the app and turns into tall grass. I got one now. I got to go turn in. I appreciate the work on that. The app is very helpful. Also glad that the project at Creech Road, the tennis courts have been completed. Been a long time. I know for pickleball, and Mary, you've been a big proponent of that. Since you're going to be retiring later on this year, and your many years of service here, maybe we need to re-road Creech Road tennis courts into the Ken Marshall pickleball court. I drive between my work between Wake Forest and Youngsville's back way, White Street, and they have a park up there, Flaherty Park, and they have the sign must be. It's kind of violate ordinance because the letters are like this tall, pickleball court it's inside the fence, pressed up against it, so you can see that they're the pickleball courts. I'll take a picture next time I go by that way. But they do promote, they have pickleball courts up there. And I'm not saying that's bad, it's just they have quite a few where they redid them in a park, one of their parks. But anyway, I know they've been playing, I believe, inside at the rec center. Right. I know they played inside at the senior center also, so I'm glad that project is complete. Thank you.
Okay. And I might have observed, I really haven't played outdoor pickleball, so this will be a new opportunity there, I guess. Okay, I will go back this way. Mr. Dellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This past Saturday, we had our kickoff for the Garner Freedom Celebration with the Juneteenth celebration at the GPAC. Our presenting sponsor was Jones Insurance, and I wanted to thank my committee members, but also wanted to thank staff. I want to thank Mr. Dickerson for all his hard work on doing the outreach and coordination on that. Rick and Kyle, I don't see them in here, but they did a great job throughout the whole process, and looking forward to seeing those pictures. And then Parks and Rec, John, Sharon, and the staff there day of was just amazing, like working on the fly to make sure all the microphones worked. They're just it's a very professional environment, and I think people appreciate that and can recognize that when they watch the shows that go on there. But they were all really great to work with. We had really good turnout, and it was a good event. So thanks everyone who chipped in to make that a good day.
Thanks, sir.
A lot of awesome local talent.
It's
amazing.
It was the most obvious thing.
Yeah.
All the local talent, Juniper Level, Wake Baptist Grove, Professor Williams. I mean, it was just local star-studded event. So it was great. So thank you.
And I would just add, it was well done. Mr. Dellinger was sort of the traffic cop backstage, so he wasn't so visible, but he was making sure everybody got to their places at the appointed time. So thank you, sir, for your work on that, for sure. Phil, I was going to go to you next.
Yes, sir. Very glad we got the budget done tonight. Now we get ready for the big 3rd of July celebrations, and it's going to be a star-studded event, I am sure. And I might have mentioned this earlier, but special thanks to Public Works for getting our Purple Heart community signs up. They look really good coming in. When you're an all-American city, then a Purple Heart it says a lot about our town and how we support our veterans and our military. But it's times like this, it's a pleasure to be serving on the board when we get good things done and we can work together and accomplish things. And we don't have to always agree to everything, but that's the way we're set up, and that's good. We vent things, and there's nothing wrong with that. So looking forward for the 3rd of July, and maybe we'll get about 20,000 people this year there. Chief, what do you think?
Mr. Vance.
Yes, I would like to echo everything that's been said about the Juneteenth celebration. Very well done, great talent. Had a good time. It was almost a mini family reunion for me. I hadn't seen folks in a while there, and we were getting socializing and things of that nature. But I would say a well done event for a great occasion. And I would like to thank the Public Works for what they've done in reference to cleaning up the corridor I mentioned during the last meeting. It looks much better now. In fact, I think some of my neighbors may be going out and doing some things as well. So I appreciate the speedy response of Public Works going out there and taking care of the corridor. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And for me, always when we think about July 3rd, there's over the last couple of years, I guess, a big tall thing they put up out there, a tower, the communications
It's
tower.
already going up,
I
yeah.
saw it was up today, I believe, we're going up today. So that's a sign that we are almost there. So it'll be a fun event, and look forward to seeing all of you out there, hopefully, if you can make it. So with that, I don't have anything else. Is there?
One thing I think we need to remember, that we changed the meeting schedule this year, and we do have a work session next week on the 27th, but then we won't meet again until Tuesday, July the 18th. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, making sure everyone remembers we won't have a first meeting in July. We got rid of that. We eliminated that meeting in the first meeting in January.
Thank you for that.
Because they were so
reminder.
close to the
Yeah.
holiday.
I think that's right, yep. Thank you, Greg, yeah. All right, with that, council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless anybody else has anything for the good of the group. Anybody out there? Okay,
So moved.
all right, motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded, all right. If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I declare this meeting of the Garner Town Council to be adjourned. See you at the work session.